Welcome back to Kingdom Builder TV. I'm your host, Jay Heilman. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about our interviews today because we're not joined by just one guest, but we have two. Joining us from the Freevee original docu-series called God, Family, and Football, I'm joined by pastor and head coach Denny Duron and assistant coach Fabian Carter. Guys, how are you doing today?
Doing
I'm doing
great.
good.
It's
Thanks for
good.
having
Hey,
us.
thank you for having us,
Amen.
Jay.
Well, I appreciate you guys joining us today, and I got a chance to see this new docu-series. It's great, and Coach Duron, we're going to start with you. You're the head coach of the Evangel Christian Academy Eagles out of Shreveport, Louisiana. And just for those that are watching and listening in today who don't know, prior to your time at Evangel, you were a quarterback yourself for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs from 1970 to 1973, and also part of that school's Division II national championship team in 1973. And, for those who aren't familiar with the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, you were a quarterback only a few years after Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson, who's alumni there, along with, of course, his backup. A lot of people don't realize that Terry Bradshaw was his backup there, but
And Jay, that's a real thing. I mean, that is not just fable. Terry Bradshaw was on the bench as long as Phil Robinson was playing, and Phil walked across the dressing room. This is the story at Louisiana Tech because I came right after those guys and said, "Well, Bama," he named him the Blonde Bomber. That's where he got that name. And he said, "Well, Bama, I'm going to leave it with you. I'm going to the woods." And it kind of worked out good for both of them.
So being a quarterback for Louisiana Tech, what was that like? Following in the shoes of those two guys. I mean, Terry Bradshaw, of course, went on to have a Hall of Fame career, won 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, what was that like? Was there any pressure there to like kind of follow that up?
Not really. Football has always been about God for me. And I got a call to preach the gospel when I was 17 years old. And then I was recruited by Louisiana Tech, not as a quarterback, but as a wide receiver. And so I went to visit Louisiana Tech, and it was there that I heard the clear voice of the Lord in my spirit say, "I've called you here to play football for my glory." Well, I didn't know how that looked because there weren't a lot of people that were doing that in my generation, playing football for God's glory. But sure enough, they switched me to quarterback my junior year. And as I was in prayer, the Lord said this to me. He said, "I'm going to give you an undefeated season for my glory." We barely slipped by our first opponent. I walked into the coach and I said, "Don't move me." I said, "We're going to go undefeated for the glory of God." He got me out of the office. It so absolutely unnerved him. He thought I'd lost my mind. And we went 12-0 for the first time in the history of Louisiana Tech. And at the end of that season, in the dressing room after a bowl game, an ABC reporter walked over and I said, "Look, I asked the Lord for an 11-0 season. We got a 12-0. That shows you what Jesus can do." So I got to use that as a platform for the gospel. And that's what's been happening really ever since, Jay. So
Uh,
no, there wasn't pressure to follow Terry Bradshaw because it was just a God thing for me.
and that's amazing. I mean, nobody but the Lord could orchestrate something like that. And of course, we got Coach Carter on here with us as well. And Coach Carter, tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be teamed up with Coach Duron and the Evangel Christian Academy Eagles.
Right. Thank you, Jake. Well, I'm an out of towner, I call it. So my pastor back home in Miami, Florida, is best friends with Pastor Denny. And so, I was working in church, serving at a pivotal moment in my life, wanted to make a change, pursuing, NFL football. And here comes Pastor Denny Duron came. And not only did he come, but he came with a friend with him that knows some things in the future. And there's a prophet. And actually spoke and prophesied over my life. And Pastor Rich, who was a dad figure to me, he told me, he said, "Hey, you need to be with Coach Denny." That's true. God spoke to me, and it was a no-brainer for me. It was like, okay, the light bulb clicked. The hardest part about it was a transition with getting my wife to understand that this was a God call. It wasn't just a Fabian call. And so we fast forward 5 years now. We've been here in 2019. We came, and here's one of the warm thing for me. I was in a public school, and I was teaching, physical education, and the call on my heart was heavy for young people. And I remember writing something in 2016 in my diary, and I said, Lord, I want to be able to catch youth, exactly like that, catch. I want to be able to catch them. And I didn't understand what was going on. But 3 years later, of course, when I got the call, I was just like, okay, well, I'm operating in just football. Little I know it was more than football. Yeah. And when I came here to a Christian institution, I never thought it would be that easy. I thought in a public school, it would be easier to, grasp kids. I thought, okay, well, coming here, these kids are already saved, so they don't need me. And it was actually the opposite. They hear me more than the kids out in a public school, which was the energy that I came with the first day has never left me. This was just absolutely God. And it was rewarding that I can love God, serve him, and speak his word while I'm at work.
And that's amazing. And, Coach Carter, that's a huge move. And that really has to be something that God does in your life, because I live in Florida. I live in Central Florida. I live outside of Tampa. So I know how it is. And if I was called to move to Louisiana, I'd be like, okay, Lord, is that?
I oftentimes get that question. Why Miami here? What's going on? Call of God, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited about this new docu-series you guys have called God, Family, and Football. And it's a new 6-part docu-series that premiered today on Amazon's free app platform, Freevee, and actually combines 3 of my favorite things in that order: God, family, and football. If one of you guys want to go ahead and tell us about this new series and what we should expect when we check it out.
Well, this series was the brainchild of a gentleman by the name of Aaron Benward. And I met Aaron when he's 12 years old. We've been close his whole life. And so Aaron called me one day about 3.5 years ago, and he said, how are you doing? I said, well, I'm doing fine. He said, how's the football team doing this year? I wasn't coaching. I said, well, we're not going to win a game, and it's the first losing season since 1990. He said, what are you going to do about it? I said, well, I'm coming out of retirement, and I'm going to coach it. He said, you're kidding. I said, no. He said, when is that going to happen? I said, tomorrow. He said, well, I'm going to get a crew and come down there. And he absolutely did that. And he shot a sizzle reel. And of course, the rest is history. And Amazon got their creativity wrapped around it and all of their contacts. And we are, as you said, going to allow the world to hopefully see exactly how God, family, and football really takes place on a daily and really a moment-by-moment basis at our little school in Northwest Louisiana. So, that's the way it all began. And we're just very, very excited that people have a chance. Really, what I would say that families have a chance to sit down and watch this whole series together. This is going to be a family wonderful time of entertainment. They've done that good a job with this.
And it really is good. And we're going to take a break here for a couple minutes so we can show viewers a little glimpse of this new series. Here's the official trailer for God, Family, and Football.
All right, everybody look right here. I'm raising you to be men. You're going to have a lot of disappointments in life. You just got to keep moving forward.
We have a motto here, and that's God, family, football.
After Evangel's worst season in history, famed head coach Denny Duron returns. Everybody is wondering, can he win a state title?
This year, we're ready to win it all.
We're going to shock the world.
The Eagles not looking good so far in this game.
Everybody's figured out the game plan. He's going to just throw it to his brother all day.
That can't work every single time.
You can't turn on each other now. You understand? This is what it almost feels like. Do you ever want to feel this feeling again?
No, sir.
Then let's go to work.
Yes, sir.
Blood, sweat, tears. You've put yourself through so much pain and suffering.
We got something to prove.
I have no problem with my kids playing football. That doesn't mean I like to see them get hurt.
He's in a lot of pain. Let's get him out of there. Give me what you got now. Push yourself.
We're trying to build champions here.
Such a blessing that I got to know y'all.
You're like one of my best friends for life.
I care about football and you.
Who's first, though?
My mother put too much on the line for me.
Everything we don't work for, we put it out here all night.
I told the boys,
Touchdown.
this is your time right now to make something happen.
Well, exciting stuff there, guys. I'm joined by Coach Denny Duron and Coach Fabian Carter from that series. And the other thing that I noticed that was cool when I first got this project in my email is God, Family, and Football was executively produced by longtime Seattle Seahawk and Super Bowl 53 winning quarterback Russell Wilson, who of course plays for the Denver Broncos now. What was it like having him involved with this new series?
Well, I think I shared a story. Russell is a person that I admire. My wife and I, we've watched him through his journey from South Carolina and going to Wisconsin. And I remember in an interview, they asked him, what made him make that decision, or was he nervous about the decision he made, transferring his senior year? And he said, I never worried about it because I know God got me. And when he said that right there in the living room, my wife and I, we locked in. And so we've been watching him, his marriage and his kids. And I mean, my wife is just hooked on that family. Little we know that he will come right back around in our circle. And he has a quote when you watch it or you read it, and he says, the thing that draw him was Coach Denny's faith. His faith in God, trust in the process and everything using football. And so to have him a part of this is huge for us. And I'm going to tell you why it's huge. Russell lives in a world where everyone watches him. He's that guy. Here we are showing how we love God, how we're living for God, using football, and a guy of that magnitude get to be a part of that. That's awesome.
That is awesome, and I'm glad that Russell uses that platform for the Lord, along with other quarterbacks in the league like Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings. So it's really
a guy.
Wonderful. I spoke to Russell just a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't know him, and we just had a great conversation. This guy's so full of the joy of the Lord. He is such a dynamic, bold believer. Yeah. And we began to talk. And honestly, Jay, I felt like he was more on fire about this series than I am. He is so excited about it. And he's believing God and praying for the very best, just like we are. And I said, well, man, we need your ideas. We need your input. And he said, yeah, I'm a big idea guy. And he said, I really want to be a part of this. So it's really not even a dream come true, because I don't think I'd have ever dreamed this big that Russell Wilson would be an executive producer on this show.
That's amazing. And, I had, you guys are coaches, I had an opportunity to meet one of my all-time favorite coaches back in 2017. You guys will obviously know who this guy is. He always put God first, family second, and football third. And of course, I'm talking about the late legendary NCAA legend, Florida State Seminoles head coach Bobby Bowden. And I got a chance to meet him. And I'm kind of curious, as coaches, I mean, who are your inspirations as far as maybe coaching, or somebody in your life that's an inspiration to what you guys do now?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I was raised in a background with Christianity background. Didn't always follow the will of God, but transitioning to a coach, Tony Dungy really set that platform for me. I mean, I've been watching him since I was in high school. Yeah. Very, very meek and humble man. And in even that time when I was still learning the right way and to follow the will of God, he showed me that. And I remember when he got into that tragic and with his son passed away, and I just saw how he handled that. I think they won the Super Bowl that same year. And it was phenomenal. And I've always watched him and how he honored God throughout his coaching career.
I would have two guys. That was my high school coach, Lee Hedges, who never raised his voice. Now, let me just say, I'm not that guy, but he never raised his voice. But he absolutely was so iconic in the way that he approached the game. Everybody who played for him through the years would tell you that they would break their neck to try to please him, and he never raised his voice. And then the other guy that was just absolutely big personality and offensive genius, Mickey Slaughter, who was my coach at Louisiana Tech. The interesting thing, Jay, is that I preached both of their funerals this year. And as I stood there eulogizing those two men, I was just overwhelmed by the fact that every day they are with me, because there's never a day that I don't think about them, and that something that they said to me doesn't come out of my mouth.
Amen. Well, guys, I really appreciate you joining me today. Coach Duron, Coach Carter, thank you guys so much. I'm wishing you guys the best of luck, and I'm praying that the Lord does big things with this new series, God Family Football, available now on Freevee. Thanks so much, guys. You guys have a great afternoon.
Thank you,
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you, brother.